reality of who wins a debate. There's not like a truth value anywhere in the universe of who wins a debate. Debates are determined based off of essentially what makes the most sense to the audience, or what ideas most correspond to what the audience can understand. And yeah, I definitely had better ideas that more corresponded to the evidence, to the science, to the audience. So in that context, yeah, I destroyed Wasted.
But just in terms of science, just in terms of science, when it comes to what the shape of the Earth is and how old it is, there is someone who's right and someone who's wrong, and so it doesn't really matter on that.
Can I make a quick request?
I've heard this analogy as far as the age of the Earth before. Like I've heard this. I guess you could call it an excuse, right? Amy just said, to determine who is wrong, we use geology, right? So I've heard this before stated, right? So Adam and Eve, right? So if Adam was created by God, right? A doctor would go up to Adam and they would check his pulse, they check his blood pressure, they check his tissue, and they say, yeah, this guy's 25 years old, right? But in reality, right, if that were the reality, he would have been made just 1 second ago. So how would geology prove the age of the Earth?
His telomeres wouldn't be that long.
And just to point out, that is why Adam and Eve is an example of a fairy tale. I'm not using that as the ad hom, but if you were to go into the logistics of any of these stories, they would never make sense.
Sorry, can I just make a really quick request to the room? Is it possible we could bring Roger up? If he's still around.
Does Roger have his hand up?
I thought he did.
I don't see him.
I know, he might have left. Fuck, I'm sorry.
That's okay, Roger. If you're out there, put your hands up and we'll bring you on board.
Is Roger?
I could check and see. I have a friend, Objects is Real. He may be available. So if you want me to check with him.
Hey, TJump, I have a question.
Yeah, go.
So do you kind of subscribe to do you think morality is objective, or like you like a moralist or something? Yes. You do. So why do you think that's the case? I just want to talk to you about that, because I've seen many substances of moralism, and I'm not sure what stance to subscribe to.
I like it best.
Very, very deep breath.
Yeah. I just came back from a jog, so I'm a bit tired.
I like it best. I don't think there's any evidence, like hard evidence for it. I think it fits the hypothesis. I think that the patterns in morality that we see in humans will be correspondent to patterns in morality of all species everywhere in the universe, including AI, the things that don't devolve. And so I think that this pattern is probably going to be governed by something more than social constructs.
More than social constructs? What do you think that thing about social constructs would be?
Like a law of physics, something fundamental in nature.
Something fundamental in nature, because I do think it's more so contingent upon the social construct, since right now my stance is cultural subjectivity or cultural subjectivist, and I do think that we're not born with these innate traits or inherent traits of like a certain moral compass. Because I have a question. You know how like conventional Americans kind of subscribe to like a sentimental value towards like dogs and cats, right?
Sure.
And people in Japan don't really have the sentimental value. They don't have a stance on that. They're not
absolutely do. They are obsessed with cats, just so you know.
Yeah, but I'm saying
but I would agree that there are certain things. There are certain things like cats and dogs. Yeah, I don't think that has anything to do with morality. I'd fully agree. Our obsession with cats and dogs is cultural subjectivity.
Yeah, so then that's my own player stance. So I don't think that you can kind of say
I don't think that everything in morality is like cats and dogs. I think like there are certain things like murder, rape, etc., that would be universal to all species independent of cats and dogs. And so I think that fundamentally all moral claims can be boiled down to one thing, which is like any involuntary imposition of will is immoral. And I think that principle will be every species conscious agent will move closer to that principle the more resources and more intelligent they have everywhere in the universe, independent of how they came about, whether it's biological or synthetic or AI. And so because I think that there's this one principle that all conscious agents will move towards, I think that whatever governs that principle is something outside of society revolution.
I think
falsifiable.
Again, I already said, well, it's falsifiable, yes, but there's no evidence for it yet, as I have admitted.
So
what would falsify your view?
I have a question, by the way. So obviously external to like
Yeah.
pets and animals. Obviously, there's a different level of intricacy and complex like ideas that we kind of subscribe to when we were talking about the animals. Obviously, they're different from humans because obviously they don't have these common traits that humans do because we would think about them in a different way, right? You agree to that?
Sure.
Right. Okay, so I agree to that kind of like independent from our own thought process or process in which we can, how do I say this? Kind of like put them in a spectrum or hierarchy because obviously humans would be above animals in terms of how would we feel, how emotionally attached we are. So if that's the case, right? When you make this kind of grandiose claim saying that this thing kind of would follow intuitively, or in the sense that this thing is, how do I say this? Because you did say that you think that there is something external to society or any societal argument
Yeah, which
that
has nothing to do with cats or dogs.
yes, yeah. So I think fundamentally, I think that can be falsified as well because I've seen documents and reports or accounts of what's it called? I've seen documents and like accounts of people having their own moral compass, which is more so governed by their.
That wouldn't be a falsification. So, like, some people are blind. Some people have 4 cones; they can see 4 colors. Is that a falsification that there is light? No. So the fact that
No, it's
some
just the
people
idea that they can
perceive things.
perceive this light.
What?
It's just the idea that they cannot see this light because of
Right. So the same thing would apply to people with morality. Some people won't be able to see or experience the moral law as accurately as other people, just like some people can't see as accurately as other people. That's not a falsification
So then how can you make this claim or bold or steady claim making that or not
because the
making a claim?
pattern across human society is the same. The
Yeah,
fact that
but
there are
that
some
pattern wouldn't actually follow from the initial premises since this thing is more so individual and it's not like a
no,
universal
that's
thing of
wrong. So
things.
this pattern does follow. There's a pattern through all human culture of as we gain in technology and intelligence, we tend to see more involuntary impositions of will as immoral. So that's always the case. Are there a couple people who disagree? Always, but the trend is always the same. So just like with global warming, there is a trend path. Are there ups and downs on the trend path? Yes. Is the trend always the same? Yes.
Okay. Do you have like a side of reference for these trends? Because I'm not really sure about that.
Steven Pinker's The Better Angels of Our Nature. That's a good one. I think Ix had another one that I forgot the name of.
Yeah, Michael Shermer's. I think it's called The Moral Arc.
I'll search that up. Yeah, just give me the names and I'll see if I can research that.
They were.
Yeah, the
I just wanted to.
hardest thing is that subjectively it feels that we are in some of the worst times, although objectively we are in some of the best.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by objectively? Because I think that the state
As
or the way
in
that society kind of is revolving around right now, I think this would kind of entail it being like a really bad time.
almost
It's-
everything that we would normally define as a good society, that is the way that society is going around the world. Like crime is lowering, people are being employed, almost everything that we look for society is heading towards. So that's what I meant to say. That's why we were
Oh,
talking
okay,
about
okay.
Steven Pinker's Better Angels of Our Nature. If we look at the statistics, objectively, it is one of the best times in human history. If you asked yourself, what time period would you like to go to a vast majority of people, they would actually have like lock-offs. They'd be like, hey, I'd want to go past any time except for, you know, this time period where I didn't have rights. And so,
Yeah, but
but
like,
subjectively, it feels shitty because we just have lives and we have our ups and our downs.
yeah, but I mean, obviously that's from your own like kind of a subjective input or worldview. Obviously, I agree to that, but I think that when you kind of make this claim about this thing objectively being better, I don't know if that's the case at all. Since I do know that like external to our tradition, like let's say and like during the slavery time or the colonial times, that these people they make slaves, not make slaves, but they kind of bred slaves, and these slaves more so do these work, and they kind of make society run better in a sense, right? But obviously now we don't agree to that. That's not conventional at all. We
No,
don't
they don't.
Sure, but
perceive that.
you are violating the bodily autonomy of many
Bodily
humans.
autonomy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
I don't
thing
think
society is
during
based on it gets violated by slavery.
Yeah, it's not just a uterus in that
So
way.
by
It's
every
everyone.
measurable statistic that can be discovered and is valued by any model of morality, the current system we live in is better objectively than any other system. Now, you could make up your own bullshit values that are unmeasurable and unverifiable, but we don't care about that. All we care about is the measurable, verifiable ones. And by every metric that is measurable and verifiable, our current society today is better than every other society throughout all of history.
What TJump said.
Okay. In perspective of our society, yeah, I would agree to that, yeah. But that's really all I wanted to kind of have a discourse about shit, because I don't really know a lot of things. That's why I kind of like retain like an agnostic position on things regarding like culture and things like that. Not sure, so this really informed me. I appreciate that.
I actually wanted to ask a bit of a question.
Mhm.
I was just wondering, Tom, like you were kind of saying you accepted your view because you liked it. Do you think like you liking a view or it making it feel good is the reason to accept that view is true?
Yes, absolutely. That's literally how all scientific hypotheses are formed.
Okay, so